This is episode 31 of On the DOT, your go-to source for information about the Indiana Department of Transportation. Every month we take you on a deep dive into the inner workings of the agency to answer your burning questions about roads, bridges, and everything in between. On this month's episode, we're highlighting our Vincennes District, including use of innovative ideas and project strategies, crisis management after a major bridge hit, and much more. You're listening to On the DOT. Thanks for being here. Welcome to On the DOT. This is a very special episode for me because normally on this type of episode I would bring in a communications person, but I am the communications person for our topic today, and we're highlighting the Vincennes District, and it's near and dear to my heart. It's my home district. It's where I work. It's where I live. So I'm looking forward to talking through some of the stuff that we have going on here in our district, some of the really innovative and cool stuff. And I'm joined today by Chris Gentry, who is our Vincennes District Technical Services Director. I'm also joined by Jared Peterson. He is our Capital Programs Director. Gentlemen, welcome to On the DOT.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm glad you guys are here. So before we jump in, why don't you guys talk a little bit about what you do? Chris, I'll ask you to go first. What is a Technical Services Director? What is your role at NDOT?
Yeah, so we do a few different things. I think the big thing that everybody kind of knows locally what we do is asset management, but there's a lot more that goes into it than just that. We have our asset management team. We also have our testing group that falls under technical service. I know we work a lot with permits. That falls within the technical service department, so anybody that's doing work on a right-of-way applies for a highway permit, and we permit that work through technical service as well. We also have traffic engineering, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit here today as well. And then anytime we have damaged state property, I've got a damaged state property manager that processes a lot of that. So we've got a lot of things that go on within the technical service team.
Yeah, technical services. So in layman's terms, how would you describe that? Maybe the person who evaluates all of our assets and makes sure our stuff outside, that it gets fixed in the right way, kind of. Yeah,
so that's a big part of the asset management side. So conditions of our assets, our bridges, roadway. On our traffic engineering side, safety and mobility. So we're always looking at conditions of assets, but also traffic data that is incorporated into that work as well. So we do have, I don't know how deep we'll get into it today, but a 20-year asset management plan that is monitored by our asset engineers. We have a 5-year active program, and then our group does a lot of the planning based on that data. So we're constantly looking out. We're right now working on a fiscal year 28 call for projects. We've engaged all of our departments and have done some virtual and on-site van trips to where we discuss some of the things from an outside technical service standpoint, so maintenance, construction, capital program, because we're planning all of that work, which will lead up to Jared's group to develop in the capital program, which he'll touch on, I'm sure, for the projects that become active for that fiscal year. So, yeah, there's a lot of data that is looked at with these projects.
I can tell you this, Chris. I know that I don't know that I could handle the amount of work that you have in your shop. Let's put it that way. So from one side of things to the next, and really this is, I don't want to say it's the first two steps in the process, but these are very early process from Chris's group to Jared's group. Jared, talk a little bit about what Capital Programs does.
Sure. So we take capital projects from inception, which is coming from Chris's group, through final audit at the end, 5 years after construction. The bulk of our work, I would say, is put in between inception to contract letting. So we're developing plans, we're getting environmental clearances, we're getting permits, which is different than Chris's permits. Chris's permits are permits for other people doing work on NDOT right away, whereas our permits are getting, waters permits, again, back to environmental clearances, things of that nature. We have a group of project managers that are the custodians of the individual projects. We have a program manager that monitors the funding behind those projects. And then we also have a staff of engineers and environmental experts, right-of-way experts, utility experts, so that we can produce some of these documents in-house. We also have a consultant service manager that works on getting consultants on board to work with our project managers to develop the things we can't produce in-house, though. And then, obviously after us, it goes to construction. They monitor the actual work being done, inspect it. Chris's group gets involved in that process too, in the testing of the material and whatnot. But we try to get it so that these assets can last until the next capital program, and maintenance has a huge part to play in that, in between those two steps. But it's kind of a very secular activity that goes on with each asset. It goes through those 4 shops and cycles through.
Yeah. And so one thing I want to kind of highlight there that you said, Jarrett, you talk about maintenance having a huge role, once the project is complete. And I know between Chris's group and between your group, there is an asset management plan for just about every project that we do, if not every project. And that basically says, in X amount of years, we're going to do this. X amount of years, we're going to do this, until it gets back to the point where we have to do another project. Is that kind of...
Yeah,
we have ballpark.
We have life cycle strategies that are part of that plan too, depending on where that asset is in its life cycle. Will be depending on the type of work that needs to be done at that given time. So that's what our asset engineers are looking at on a regular basis, and how that gets constructed. Maybe it's a preventative maintenance type treatment that gets done and gets developed and constructed. Maybe it's a reconstruction project. That's what we're evaluating with the data that we've got to work with, and the conditions on site that we're looking at with our asset management plan, and is what's bringing those projects up to a level of need of some type of work that Jared will then take through his team will take through development, that our team in technical service has looked at as a priority need project to become active and have some form of work be done.
Yeah, so part of that's the fact that, the same with your car, you change oil in your car, you don't buy a new car every time you need to change oil. Obviously there's a lot of work that goes on in between the, preventative maintenance and full reconstruct, but part of that is you have to find a way to make what we have last. It would be nice, the same in your house, it'd be nice to redo your kitchen, your bathroom, and your living room all at the same time, but that's usually not feasible.
So one other thing that we do within our group, we have a special projects engineer that is kind of that connection and communication point where we're regularly working with maintenance. So we're identifying things in that window of time where it's being maintained, it's been built, it's been out there for us to maintain it with our forces. So we have a yearly maintenance work plan that our special projects engineer works with the leaders of our maintenance departments, or our maintenance department in the sub-districts, and identifies needs of work for that annual plan too for maintenance activities.
All right, very cool. So now that we kind of have an understanding of what goes on in your all shops, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we have going on right now. And first and foremost, and I just want to kind of scratch the surface because we're getting ready to go to a break, but let's talk a little bit about some of Lloyd For You specifically. Now, for those who don't know, Lloyd For You is on the Lloyd Expressway in Evansville, which is, I would say it's probably our heaviest traveled road.
It is.
Yeah. So, and we have US 41 and things of that nature, and I-69, I-64. But, what's the average count on Lloyd Expressway?
It depends on your exact location, but you're talking 50,000 vehicles traveling across the Lloyd Expressway. That's a tremendous amount of traffic moving on a non-interstate route.
Yeah, and then if we've got like an eclipse or a special event something like that, we're talking what, 100,000 maybe?
Yeah, there could be a lot of traffic generated, and I know looking out into the future, that's going to be something that we definitely plan for and discuss come 2024, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where I was leading us. So we've got this giant highway that is so dynamic, and that's kind of where I was going with it. It's a dynamic highway that's kind of a major thoroughfare. Well, not kind of, it is a major thoroughfare through the city of Evansville, which is the third largest city in the entire state. And so we recognized how dynamic it was and really how much, I don't want to say improvement it needed, but where we could improve to really help the flow of traffic. And so let's start kind of at the beginning with the corridor study that was performed a few years back. Can you kind of give us the history of that in a nutshell?
Yeah, so this was a unique project, or something that we had worked with our Evansville MPO. The Evansville MPO is the MPO that's within the Vincennes District, and was approached by them to kind of do a partnership in this corridor study for the Lloyd Expressway, but also for US 41. And it was a partnership in the fact that we weren't just looking at the state route for a corridor study, we were looking at the full network and how that was kind of interacting with each other. So local routes in connection with the state route to see, okay, we know that we've got some safety concerns along the stretch of roadway, we've got some mobility challenges as well, and we've got high volumes of traffic, right? So what we had kind of entered into there was a partnership with the MPO to look at all these intersections and to evaluate, okay, where are our biggest needs? Where are those priorities? And that's what the corridor study did. Back in 2007, we kind of started that process. And we had a corridor study developed for the Lloyd Expressway and for 41, which kind of highlighted the needs of those corridors. Now, the good thing was, as a result of that, that was a corridor study, but no projects were carried forward from that study until we carried them into our scoring process that we have for our normal call for projects. And a lot of the projects that were identified in that corridor study were high scoring projects because of the safety improvements and the efficiencies with mobility that we would be seeing. So there were several that got picked up in our fiscal year 24 and 25 call for projects that now Jared's team is actually developing along the Lloyd Expressway. And you can see through the website that we've got, the Lloyd for You website, where you can see the improvements that have been identified and get up-to-date details of what's being developed for those projects.
Yep, absolutely. So we're going to take a break here. We will get into the meat and potatoes of those projects here in the next little bit. So when we come back, I'm going to have more with Chris and Jared, and we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about Lloyd for You and what's coming for the corridor and how that's going to affect the traveling public positively, and maybe some things that the public has questions about. We'll be right back with more on the DOT.
INDOT recently launched a new app, INDOT TrafficWise. Our INDOT TrafficWise app makes it easier than ever to prepare for your travels. The app has features like road closures, construction information, traffic cameras, route planning, snowplow cameras, commercial vehicle information, hands-free alerts, and more. You can even sign up for a customized experience that allows you to save your favorite cameras, set up travel time notifications, and save your favorite routes for easy access to roadway information like construction and closures. Find us in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store by searching INDOT TrafficWise. That's INDOT TrafficWise.
Welcome back to On the DOT. Chris Gentry and Jared Peterson are with us today. They are our Technical Services Director in the Vincennes District and Capital Programs Manager in our district, or Director, I shouldn't say manager, respectively. And last segment, we kind of dived into what you guys do. And we hinted at the Lloyd for You projects. So, Chris, you mentioned that the corridor study was kind of your shop. Now, Jared, a lot of those that have been picked up for fiscal year 24-25, they're now in your shop. So let's talk a little bit and go into depth about some of the cooler ones that we have. And right off the bat, my brain goes to the I-69 interchange, where we kind of have that hybrid. It's what, between a displaced left or kind of a half RCI, like median U kind of thing. Like you can probably explain it better than I can describe it. So let's talk a little bit about that particular project, and then anything else that you want to talk about as well. We'll follow your lead.
Sure. So lloydforyou.com is a website you should visit if you want more information.
And we will have that in our description in the bio, so be sure to check out that link.
Shout out to Chris for coming up with that name. I feel like little credits due there for coming up with the name. But it's a $100 million project between the pavement replacement and then the intersection improvements all along State Road 66 and 62. Looking at Evansville as kind of a, northwest, southeast, using the Lloyd and then also 41 to kind of be the dividing points on the east side.
And that's another thing. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Jared, but that's something that a lot of people don't realize is that at US 41, you have two different roads. It's 62 on one side, 66 on the other side. I don't think a lot of people realize that until you pointed it out to them.
We just do the projects. That would be probably in Chris's shop, maybe. But but on the east side, we're doing some innovative intersections, which you alluded to. I guess most prominent one would be the displaced left turns. They're also known as continuous flow intersections in different parts of the country. But kind of the concept there is prior to the main intersection, moving traffic to the left of oncoming traffic before the intersection. That way, traffic wishing to make a left is able to make a left at the same time that through traffic is going in the other direction. So when you're coming up to a left turn and you have the red arrow and you're waiting for the other traffic to go in the other direction for your green arrow, that won't happen here. And
so basically you're not crossing 4 lanes of traffic to make a left turn. You're making it more similar to what you'd make a right-hand turn normally, correct?
Yeah, in the sense that you can do it at the same time that the other direction's going at the same time. No, that's a good way of looking at it. Also, I wanted to just mention that a couple of us have went to St. Louis, apart from the mayor's trip down in Evansville to St. Louis. Yeah,
I was about to mention that there's like a legendary story about the Evansville mayor. We proposed this, nobody liked it, and then the Evansville mayor went to St. Louis to check it out. And then he came back loving it. So shout out to Mayor Lloyd Winnicky if you ever hear this. But continue, Jared. I'm sorry.
Yep. No problem. So we went there and looked and drove through them, took some GoPro footage of them. And I think my personal takeaway, and I'm not a traffic engineer. I've been working for the state now for almost 5 years, but did not have transportation experience before coming here. So coming from a layman's point of view, it's not terribly exciting. So that's the thing, like looking at some of the videos, I thought maybe the overhead footage, you'd think like, wow, this is going to be an experience. It's like, no, it really looks just like a regular intersection. The signs take you to the right direction, the lights work, and it just, you get to where you need to be quicker. And, then looking at some of the details, you get there quicker and safer. So I think it's a great thing. And I think, too, watching some of the footage, and Federal Highway has a very good video on displaced left turns. I think the thing that comes away from it is that it's not rocket science. They're really using common sense to make something better. It might not be instant, intuitive type of common sense, but when you actually see what's happening here, we're just doing something in a slightly different place so that it works better. They're using common sense and applying it to, real world applications. And, that's kind of leads me into the next thing, realizing that we have a good story to tell, and, haven't always been good at telling stories. We've really invested heavily in being able to tell that story. We've started producing some of our own educational videos on these different types of intersections, and I think that will help us tell our story. Because I mean, doing something new, doing something different, it is our burden to bear to make sure that it is something that other people can get on board with, and I think they will.
I think the big thing along the Lloyd Expressway that everybody is aware of, the good thing is there's a lot of business activity along the Lloyd, as well as homes through some of those stretches, which kind of brings its own challenges with what your limitations are, because a big thing that we're trying to achieve along with improving safety is the mobility piece, but also the accessibility piece of all of those businesses and homes along that stretch. And what these unique, we call them unique, but they're not, I mean, these have been built across the United States, but newer introduction into Indiana, which is what the corridor study did. It was really unique in that it brought these alternatives to the forefront for us to take a look at as a planning tool, so that we could evaluate this does statistically and data driven make a lot of sense for us to try to proceed forward with these projects, because we are going to see a great reduction in the safety and improvements in the mobility while also maintaining all of that accessibility. So the efficiencies across the Lloyd Expressway will improve, but also your safety numbers in the amount of accidents and severe crashes that you will experience at some of these normal signalized intersections are going to come down because of these innovative approaches that we're looking to do.
That's a great point, Chris, that these aren't new ideas. They're new to us, but I want to say Utah has some that are 20 years old. So it's tried and true is a fair statement on these intersections. And some people have thought about trying to fit an interchange at some of these intersections, but then you end up bulldozing a lot of the stuff that you would be trying to get to at that location. I would also add too, if you went with that style of improvement, it also just kind of feels weird when you go over a bridge or an interchange, and then a quarter mile down the road, then there's just a regular old turnoff too. If we were to do a larger project at any one of these locations, that doesn't mean the Lloyd becomes a freeway. And I don't think anybody wants that, because there are so many businesses and people that live off the Lloyd. Part of how it services the community is providing that access. It's not just it's not a bypass.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I mean, a lot of people, you see it on social media, and me as communications director, I've seen it firsthand. People will talk about the Lloyd Expressway being named the Lloyd Expressway, but it's not an expressway, and I mean, that tends to be a rub with people. And so I think that explanation, it tells us, hey, this is not necessarily meant to be an interstate route. It's meant to move you through town quicker, sure, but it's not necessarily meant to be, interchanges here, there, and everywhere, and especially at places like Burkhart. And again, I'm sitting here throwing out my internal knowledge of this, but you have those spatial challenges, and you don't want to displace homes. You don't want to make businesses close, and that in itself, those are challenges that we have to really work through, and that's why we come up with these creative solutions that, again, like you said, are new to Indiana, but they've worked everywhere else that they've been installed.
So to that effect, moving to a different road and a couple different locations, we have actually seen high success with median U-turns that we've installed within the district that have been in place for several years now. I've been here a little bit longer than Jared, but I remember sitting up in the space that I currently, where my office is now, talking about a very severe accident that we had in northern Knox County, a very tragic crash that resulted in several fatalities. And I remember us talking about how do we, what's the best approach to bring these crashes down, because we had experienced a lot of severe accidents at these locations. And the median U's are one way to do that in a very impactful way, because you take all of those conflict points that you experience with divided highways at these normal intersection crossings, and you reduce those conflict points drastically. And when you reduce the number of conflict points and reduce the amount of decisions that we as drivers have to make at any given location, you have a huge impact on safety. And I know in Spencer County on US 231, the northern Knox counties up on US 41, we've seen that very thing happen. The data that was going into supporting the decision to carry these projects forward has proven itself. I know I've had personal calls from individuals that have worked accidents at those locations 18 months after we installed the median U's and having the first accident. Are these gonna eliminate accidents? No, but they are gonna reduce the severity of the accidents that we see. We had our first accident there, and it was a very minor side swipe accident resulting in no injuries. And that's what these intersections do. It's about safety. It's about bringing the severity of those crashes down so that we don't see the fatalities at these locations.
No. Yeah, and I'm sorry, Jared. I like to say that it gives people a fighting chance, because in a lot of cases, you talk about conflict points, and conflict points, for those who don't know, it's a point in an intersection or on a roadway where there is potential for a crash, and the type of conflict, the type of crash is really important when you're talking about the design of intersections, especially because what you want to avoid is right angle or T-bone crashes. And statistically, a T-bone crash is much more dangerous than a side swipe. Yeah, you can get hurt doing in a side swipe accident, but the chances are statistically less likely, correct?
That's correct, yeah. The right angle crashes are what become the most severe, and those are where we see the high level of severity and unfortunately fatalities as a result of those. And that's what we work to eliminate that movement and reduce the amount of decisions, like I had mentioned, that we have to make. Because if you are heading straight across a divided highway, you're making a lot of decisions at one point. And anytime we can reduce that movement in an area where we have high crashes, you're going to see those numbers of severity come down.
And what is it, the median U-turn? It takes you from looking across 4 lanes of traffic to only looking across 2 lanes at a time, right?
And it positions the vehicle and the driver's view in the appropriate vision to where they can confidently and comfortably make those decisions.
It's, again, like we talked about with the displaced left turns, it's taking common sense ideas and applying it to the real world. And I'm not saying that everything engineers do is common sense. I'm just saying usually if you dig deep behind what's actually being done, there is a thread of common sense there. And, like take, 2 pool balls, bang them together head on, what kind of noise does that make? If you run them both along the table and they kind of drift into each other's path and run into each other, it's a lot quieter sound. And that's exactly what we're talking about with these median U-turns. If accidents do happen, and they will happen, they're going in the same direction, and so the severity of the crash is going to be a lot less. There's no silver bullet that fixes every problem. Like there is more distance traveled for people on the side road using the median U-turns, but it's safer. Also, a lot of places it gets rid of stoplights, so time that you would have been stopped at that intersection waiting for the light to change, you can make up a lot of time. How many times do people take cutoff roads and back ways trying to save time? Like we're just kind of bringing that to the forefront, and so I don't see a big downside there. And I mean, too, one that we have up and coming, real close to home. So I live in Princeton, Indiana, and just south of State Road 64, which is kind of the main east-west route in town, there is a median U-turn going in, and where there currently is a stoplight. And that's one of the things that you hear suggested when we propose median U-turns, is why don't you just put a signal there? There are dangers that come from having a signal there. We've lost people that have got rear-ended at stoplights before. And I guess selfishly speaking, I have to stop at that stoplight almost every day to take my kid to daycare. And when I never have to stop there again, it will just make my day. So there's benefits to everybody involved. People on the side road, and we say side road just because usually on a median U-turn, it's the 4-lane road that gets the treatment. But the road feeding into the 4-lane road, they get safer travel a lot of times at no extra time. And then people going through that intersection on the main road, a lot of times they don't ever have to stop there again. So I just think it really is a win-win.
So one other thing, I mentioned getting a call at that first accident, and
I remember that, by the way.
So we had a lot of public involvement, and I wanted to mention this because we don't just put these projects out there. We engage with the public because we want to do as much education around this as we possibly can. So I want to kind of say if there are ideas or if there are thoughts that the public have that would be beneficial for us to consider that maybe we haven't considered yet, please feel free to reach out and let us know. But in that case, I had a chance, and I know several of us had a chance to talk to individuals that worked those crashes, and some of those very severe ones. And that actually was a text that I got the morning of that accident, was that what you guys did was right, and it works. And it's so good to hear, because a lot of times there is a fear, or there is a uncomfortable feeling of us introducing a new type of intersection, and a lot of times it's just the unknown. So what we try to do is, in that case, we'd roll out a map and have some Hot Wheel cars. I know in some cases with roundabouts we've had people driving golf carts. I know in the case of the project on 231, we had a mat as big as a gymnasium floor, I think, and had people walk through. So we're trying to be as educational as we can, with knowing that some of these are unique and some of these will be the first time people drive through these intersections. But like Jared mentioned, when we drove over to St. Louis and just kind of was looking at the intersection there with the displaced left, we really didn't even realize we drove through it until we were already driving through it. It's that kind of intuitive, with signage, with just the ease of being able to drive through the intersection. So we're trying to bring the level of the unknown or the uncomfortableness of these types of projects down. And a lot of times we can do that with education, but a lot of times it's getting exposed to these projects, driving through them, and just getting a hands-on experience, I think, is always helpful.
And we're not omniscient. We do definitely benefit, like Chris mentioned earlier, about getting feedback from the community, and that feedback is used. I think Jason accidentally alluded to this earlier when he talked about there being a hybrid intersection put in at Cross Point in Epworth, and kind of working with the community, learning about some challenges, and taking a second look. We are putting more traditional dual displaced left turns at that intersection, but then we also did find a place that it was almost fairy tale perfectly tailored to fit a hybrid intersection, and so that's what's going in at Stockwell Avenue at this point. And then also, I guess, we have videos for each of those 3 types of intersections on Lloyd For You, but also hoping that some of this stuff can live beyond, individual projects and kind of become a statewide aid. We've also added them to INDOT's YouTube page, so plug for that. I think this ends up getting posted there eventually too. So I mean, there's a lot of good content put on there, and I mean, I like that too, because we're not always going to know everything about everything going on at every district. That's a lot of material, and so it's nice to have a place that kind of gathers different stuff so you can see what other people are doing.
Yep, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to get into our final segment. And when we come back, we've talked a lot about what we've got going on the Lloyd Expressway. I want to shift gears a little bit. Another Evansville project, and let's be honest, Evansville's our biggest city, so we've got a lot going on there and a lot of very visible projects. So please don't be upset with us, the rest of our district. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the Pigeon Creek Bridge and that whole situation. And if you don't know about it, stick around. It's going to be a great story. We'll be right back with more on the DOT.
Somebody needs to report that pothole.
Why aren't they mowing the grass in the median?
When are they going to fix this road?
You know there's an easy way to get answers to those questions and report the problems you see on interstates, U.S. routes, and state roads. Dial 1-855-INDOT4U to talk to a live customer service professional. That's 855-463-6848. Hate talking on the phone or have a fear of human interaction? We've got you covered. Go online to INDOT4U.com to use our Report a Concern tool. You can also report a concern through our INDOT mobile app for iPhone and Android. If you've got questions, we've got answers at 855-INDOT4U or online at INDOT4U.com.
Welcome back to our final segment of On the DOT, and this has just been an excellent conversation. We've talked a lot about things that we hear about very frequently from the members of the public, and I just want to say kudos to Chris and Jared for being with us today and really going through some of the finer details of the things that we do. I think this is going to be really beneficial to those who listen. So please share this episode. It's a great. It's not only an education about the Vincennes District, but a lot of it's processed statewide as well. So we talked about Lloyd for You and all of the innovative solutions that we're employing there, but I want to shift gears now and talk about, I don't want to call it a tragedy necessarily, but it was a major event in the history of INDOT in the last couple of years. And I want to talk about Pigeon Creek Bridge on US 41. It was just such a crazy event. So let's kind of start at the beginning. We get a project just complete to rehab this bridge, right? So let's start there.
Historic bridge.
Historic bridge. So Jared, let's start there. Talk a little bit about that project briefly.
It was, like you said, a rehab job. We painted the bridge. I remember seeing the tarp over the bridge for a good while. It came out the other end a different color. So it was baby blue at the end, and it had been baby blue only for a few months when the accident occurred.
Yeah, because I think we'd only had it open for, 5 months?
Yeah, it was a short amount of time. Yeah, it was the truss bridge. So, yeah, we ended up getting a strike shortly thereafter when we just had it complete. That caused some significant damage to that structure.
And let's talk about the significance of a truss bridge. I mean, there aren't many of those left.
Nope. So that's what you mentioned, called it a tragedy and kind of walked back. And I guess the fact that no one was injured makes it that way. But if you're a fan of bridge architecture, you could maybe rightly call it a tragedy. But yeah, so it was extensive damage. I think every horizontal member was struck. When the engineers really started looking at it, they were surprised it was still standing.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going to, Chris. I was going to ask you about that.
I was just going to mention one other thing, too, as part of this, because we've got an exciting thing with being with INDOT and getting to work with so many great people and even our external consultants, contractors that we work with. Technologies have just vastly improved, made changes over the last several years. And I know in that instance, we had our bridge inspection team taking a look at the structure because of the significance of damage, but we also had our central office team come down with drones and actually capture inspection footage of that structure as well. And just the buildup of technology within the state of Indiana, but also even here locally at the district level, the drone footage that we received was just remarkable. And since then to now, we've actually kind of built up a little fleet within the Vincennes District of our drone capabilities. So the future of, hopefully this never happens again. We don't have that many truss structures out there that it would happen to, right? But just for inspections and things that we could use a drone as opposed to having human beings out there inspecting on a structure like that is just amazing of where we're going with technologies.
And that was going to be kind of my point. It's like you're literally using that technology to take the risk completely out of the job. Because what's the process without it? I mean, you have to tie off, you have to get somebody under the bridge or up on a lift. I mean, there's inherent risk involved with bridge inspection practices.
Yeah, and in that case, with the damage that was done, there was risk with that structure and all of those horizontal members being damaged as significantly as they were.
Yeah, because I mean, ideally in that situation, you would drive the lift out onto the bridge and go up and down where you need to, but that was definitely a concern safety-wise.
Yeah, at that time, I remember, because we weren't even comfortable with people walking on the bridge at that point, because I remember I had to kind of let a news crew know, because they parked on the south side of the bridge and then walked over it to the north side, and I had to tell them, hey, I need you to find another way.
So mentioning our partners and internally and externally, obviously we couldn't have a bridge down for a super extended period of time that serves another high-traveled road, southbound 41, close to Evansville. So immediately, I mentioned damaged state property and some of that stuff that is handled through technical service as well as our bridge asset teams. We had the inspection team involved. We also had the capital program team. We had construction. We had a quick work to get traffic routed around the structure as we evaluated what needed to be done.
And that in itself was brilliant, by the way, because we used the detour route that we had for the previous bridge project?
Yep, that's correct. And had a willingness of everybody to attack this as fast as we could. Now, you can't, as Jared's alluded to before with environmental permitting, when you're dealing with a historical structure like that, you have other agencies through our state historical preservation office that we have to work with. All of that was going on with this project. It had a lot of coordination efforts that needed to be done to determine how quickly can we develop a project to get this structure replaced, this bridge structure replaced. We had future work planned for US 41 in those locations for the pavement that we had to talk about trying to accelerate a portion of, but you can't develop and build a project overnight. It takes some time. But the amount of time it took to get from when it was struck to the coordination efforts to being designed and taken to a bid letting to now being constructed and close to completion has been phenomenal.
Yeah, and you might not get this next point if you're a historic bridge nut, but I think, the on the environmental side and the time that goes in there kind of gets a bad rap. That people's lives are being affected by this detour, by this road being closed, etc. Why does it take so long? But with historic stuff, with the environment. A lot of stuff, once it's gone, it's gone. And at INDOT, we're spending other people's money, the taxpayers' money, on things that are supposed to benefit everyone. That's one of the best things about working at INDOT is that I really feel there's few other places where you can positively impact so many lives. But that said, because you have that responsibility, because, we have the right to go through the acquisition process and condemn people and take their property from them, which we didn't have to do in this situation. But again, kind of speaking to why certain things take a long time, is that there is a lot of responsibility entrusted to INDOT, and we don't take that lightly.
No, I would agree wholeheartedly. We try to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. That's the way I always try to put it to people. Really quickly, because we are at we are quite a bit over time here, but I do want to talk about the historical structure. Even with it being a historical structure, we're now near completion of the Pigeon Creek US 41 bridge. We jam-packed a project from its infancy to maturity in 2 years, less than 2 years, really, when you think about it. And what's that normal process look like? I mean, how long does something like that take?
5 years.
Yeah, this was
to get it to letting and then construction. And this is, a 2-year construction season for this work. And something we haven't touched on in this presentation yet was that we also moved up a significant road job that was supposed to let, I think originally in this year, in fiscal year 23, back to tie in with this bridge work. And that produced, I would say, significant savings being able to do that. But that was also a challenge, and our consultant partners really came through for us. When we made the call, no one said no, and here we are today.
Yeah, this was a record time, Jason. This doesn't normally happen, but it only happened because of the coordination efforts of all agencies involved, internal, external partners as well. Normally it takes the 5-year window because of the development cycle, be it with environmental, permitting, utilities, right-of-way, all of that typically goes into projects. Some of that you can tighten up if you don't have certain things that you have to go through in development. But typically your 3 to 5 year development time is what you normally would experience. For a significant project as this, that is a record time to be able to deliver something that quickly. And it only happened because of everybody pushing forward to try to make it happen as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I would agree. And so, gentlemen, we are out of time for this episode. I want to ask for your final thoughts. Is there anything that you'd like the general public to know? What do you want the listeners to know about the Vincennes District, other than that we are the best district?
Jared made a great point. It's such a great experience getting to work with INDOT. Kind of everybody we work with internally, but everybody we work with externally. There's just tremendous amount of opportunities within the Department of Transportation that you get to experience a lot of different things and see a lot of different things. And it even goes to the partnerships that we have. I know I'm involved with the Indiana Transportation team that is our consultant and contractor world that we work with on a regular basis to kind of talk through these relationship building events like this. That wouldn't have happened without the relationships that we have with all of our partners in the Vincennes District. With that said, is this where we put in the plug for INDOT's hiring? Or
I think this is a great place for that.
Yeah, so I would just say it's great to get to see all the different workings within INDOT and getting to work with all of our partners. We have a lot that's going on over the next 5 years in Vincennes, but also in the Evansville area with the work that we've talked about here. But there is a lot of projects out there. I would just say, as you see these projects in construction, drive through these projects, drive through them safely. It can be an inconvenience at times, but please take your time. Be aware that there are people out there working behind the orange barrels. So as you experience more and more of those as we look out into the future and plan for that work, just know that there are great improvements being made as a result of those.
Yeah, there's definitely a positive intention. The construction is inconvenient, but there are also the roads that everybody that works for INDOT drives on. We live in this district. We struggle with construction just like anyone else, but it is to continue to make Indiana accessible to business, to employment, to vacations, to going and seeing your family and friends. Like, we literally are connecting people through the work we do. I'd also say that, when we come through with different projects, we are looking for your input, but then also know that, we are doing these projects definitely with intent. There is, a concept behind them, and it's our burden to try to explain that to the public. And we take, like I said before, we don't take that lightly, but we also are looking for your input, so get involved.
That's right. It's a good time to be in transportation.
It really is. And might I say, INDOT is the #1 transportation state for Indiana's #1 state, right?
Yep. For infrastructure. Yep.
So there we go. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you all for being on the DOT this month.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
This has been On the DOT, a production of the Indiana Department of Transportation. For more information, please visit our website at indot.in.gov. For the latest updates on road conditions or construction, you can download our INDOT mobile app for Apple and Android devices. Submit your roadway concerns by calling 1-855-INDOT-FOR-YOU or online at indot4u.com. Find all of that information in the description of this episode. Full episodes of On the DOT are available on YouTube by searching for INDOT. You can also follow INDOT and all 6 of our districts on Facebook and Twitter. If you like what you're hearing, please be sure to leave us a rating on your favorite podcast platform. Join us again every 3rd Thursday for new episodes of On the DOT. Until then, travel safely, and thank you for joining us on the DOT.